Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me in enemy territory up there in Fayetteville, Arkansas, of ESPN Arkansas, Tye Richardson. Tye, good evening, sir. How are you?
Chase, I'm great, man. Happy to talk some balls and hogs. We were kind of joking before. It's been a little rough territory for Tennessee the last 3 outings, but there's nowhere near the talent that they have coming into Fayetteville, Arkansas. And considering the line's about 2 touchdowns right now, I'm just hoping it's a decent ball game come Saturday night.
I don't want decent, because decent for Tennessee in this scenario means it's going down to the wire, and I'm going to be pacing around the living room really late at night, because these night games, one of the worst developments of this new post-CBS SEC world that we're living in, Ty, is I'm never going to have an afternoon Tennessee game again. Like, Florida is at night next week, and then I guess Bama's going to be at night. We were at night for Oklahoma. We were at night on ABC for NC State. It's Herbie and Chris Fowler for the rest of my life. That's where we're at when you're really good in the SEC now.
Yeah, and that's what Tennessee is, being a top 5 team in the country. It is kind of unique. You also being on Eastern time. We're on Central time, so it's 6:30 here. But I think for a good chunk of SEC audience, they are used to kind of a mid-afternoon, 2:30 or 3:30, depending on your time zone kickoff. And it's going to be a time change, but not going to complain about night games. Right? At least I'm not. I love them. It gives fans a chance to lather up and get ready for what's to come. All Arkansas had to do, Chase, was beat Texas A&M, and College Game Day would be here in Fayetteville. Instead, they choked it away again. And it's still going to be a marquee game. You mentioned Herbie and Fowler calling in on Saturday night, but not to the extreme if College Game Day was in town for the first time since 2006, coincidentally, against the Tennessee Volunteers.
Sidebar. I've written extensively this week. I'm going to write some more the rest of this week over at TPL Tennessee about this matchup. I've seen Hog spelled Hogs by some Hog fans. I've seen it spelled Hawgs, and I've always just written it without even thinking about it, like dogs, like Dawgs. I write Hawgs when I'm after I've used Razorbacks. Like, I think the AP style is Hogs. Like, I like you say it in a southern drawl. It's Hogs. Like, I'm not putting hog. Like, I don't look at it as like a real animal. Like, I'm not looking at it like we're going hog hunting. I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's a different fictional just mascot. I'm going Hawgs. Is that right or no?
Chase, both ways here. I don't think the Vols are VAWLS. It's just VOLS.
Yeah, Vols VAWLS is a little tough. I don't know if I can do that. It's tough on me to see.
Yeah, so we say it both ways. Maybe that's just our education, or lack thereof, I should say. But you write it in a story. I think people will pick up on who you're talking about either way.
Yeah. So I think I know which way you're going, but as of this Wednesday night, what is your gut feeling on how this game's going to go, the more you've studied this matchup and where you're at in the middle of the week?
Man, the thing about Tennessee, some teams you play and they have a really good passing game, and if you stymie that, it's going to be a good football game. They got a really good run game. You get on that, it's a good football game. Tennessee has both. Like, they slowed it down against Oklahoma. Heupel called off the dogs, partially because I think he trusts his defense in the second half. I think there's still a little piece of him that didn't want to beat Oklahoma's alma mater, where he won a national championship and saw it by 50-some-odd points, even though there was a lot of hype heading to that game considering he got fired. But as of Wednesday night at 7:35 Eastern, I don't feel great about Arkansas's chances. I think it's like Tennessee by like 17. I think they cover. Like, it's like a 10-point game in the fourth quarter. It's close. Arkansas is within striking distance, and then big play happens. I mean, Tennessee, if they jump on you early like they have, I think it's 78-3 in the first 4 games of their season. It's over. So any big plays from Nico and company, or pick six or anything like that it's going to be a long night for the team in red.
What is Sam Pittman's record in close games? You've talked about being in these close games and choking away. It's pretty bad, right? And I know the stat about him, like when he's down in the fourth quarter. Not a lot of comeback wins in the Sam Pittman era.
5-15. Our producer texted today 5-15. So Colton, I'm taking your word and saying this on Chase's podcast and saying 5-15. Might need to fact check that, but he's usually pretty good on that. So and it's worse than the last 2 years. And I think, like, Coach Pittman, of course, was in Knoxville at one point, and if I had to guess, there's probably not a Tennessee fan that's going to say anything bad about him because he's so likable. And I feel like you always have to, before you make a degrading statement about Sam, you have to say first, everyone loves the guy, media, fans, whatever. But one of my beefs today on our program, Chase, is the continuation of these losses and how things don't seem to be progressing in the right way. I think Tennessee fans saw similar shades with Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt, and it's just frustrating. And eventually, you have enough. I don't know if the breaking point is going to be this year. I hope not. I don't think that's good for the Arkansas program, but it is not a stat that Sam Pittman likes to be associated with when it comes to his football program.
Sam is like one of those weird, and this is from the outside looking in here, Ty, but to me, the thing, because you're seeing how much Barry Odom, how much success he's having at UNLV, and I think early returns are still positive for Petrino at OC. Who knows what he would have looked like with KJ Jefferson for a couple of years too, and like had just been with Sam all post Kendall Briles. Like if you don't go the Enos route or don't do, they're like. One of the tricky things about hiring, and Tennessee's not in this boat right now, but they were in this boat with Butch, is that you at least know what he's good at. Like Heupel has you can lose Alex Golish to USF, and you know the offense can be fine. Like Tennessee was number 1 in scoring up until last week and found a way to win in Norman. Like you know the offense isn't going anywhere. Tennessee is stacking 5-star quarterback on 5-star quarterback. Like that is still going to continue on because Heupel is a offense guy, and it's going to be okay with or without an important coordinator. But they've also had continuity on the defensive side of the ball. Rodney Garner's been here the whole time with Heupel. Tim Banks has been here the whole time with Heupel. Willie Martinez has been here the whole time with Heupel. Ryan John Marie was for the first 3 years, and he just left for Michigan. But then you replace him with the defensive coordinator of the team that was just in the national championship game in William Inge. I think that's an underlooked at part of this Arkansas team to me, and feels like that's kind of where the beginning of the end was with Arkansas. Like, do you think if Sam was able to get, even if it's Kendall or you have Barry Odom for a couple more years, if you got 3 years of Odom with Sam early on, if you got 1 year of Kendall, but then all these post years with Petrino at OC, does it all this look very different? Is it just like unfortunate coordinator luck here?
Here's what I would say, Chase. If you're a good coordinator, you're probably only at a destination 2 or 3 years, and then you're getting hired as the head coach, i.e. Barry Odom jumping back into the head coaching world, place that he was. Kendall's still a coordinator, but I think that was more wanting to go back to the Texas area. And then you look at other guys across the board. Like, for example, I think Travis Williams. Arkansas is a really good defense. It's not Georgia. I know Georgia and Alabama are where I immediately go, even though both teams gave up 40-plus, I think, last week. Tennessee, you mentioned the continuity on their defensive staff. That's what makes Tennessee a national contender this year, is because not because of that high-powered offense. They've had that under Heupel 2 years ago with Hendon. It's because of that defense on that side of the football. So I think that it's so hard, and like the continuity you're discussing, if you have a good coordinator, he's not going to be a coordinator for long. People are going to want to give him a whack at a head coaching job. And I think Travis Williams, someone's going to give him a chance next year based on what his defense has done the past year and a half. I don't know if Bobby Petrino ever has a desire to jump back into a D1, much less will get an offer from a big-time D1 program. But continuity is always important. For example, Arkansas, we just saw Tennessee win a baseball national championship. Tony Vitello, Danny White's done a fabulous job. It's the best athletics department in the country. It's inarguable. Football, basketball, baseball, no one stacks up to it. Arkansas's got a good overall athletics department. Just it hasn't been as successful in the 3 major sports as fans want it to be, especially last year when you had a football team went 4-8. Basketball team didn't make the tournament. The baseball team got bounced early. But yeah, continuity is a big deal. Baseball's had 2 coaches since 70, if I remember right. And I know Tennessee got that elusive national championship, but Arkansas has had traditionally a stellar baseball program. That's going to continue as long as DBH is here.
Absolutely. And there's no relationship in past history between Vitello and the Arkansas Razorbacks program, as many people remember. Nothing there.
Tennessee coming to Fayetteville, Baum-Walker Stadium later this season. That's going to be one of the most hyped baseball series, regular season-wise, in Fayetteville ever. Arkansas fans watched their former assistant, Dave's former assistant, win a national championship doing it his way, loud, obnoxious. He's a heck of a baseball coach. We've seen it for the past, 4 years? I think 3 out of 4 years they've made it to Omaha. He's phenomenal. And there's the old, he's new school. Dave's
Yeah.
old school. So it is a clash of titans coming up in Bob Walker. Chase, if you hadn't been to a baseball game in Arkansas, that
Yeah.
would be the one trip you'd want to make.
I don't know if I'll get out alive, Ty. Like, I think it's gonna be pretty intense. My gut is that's gonna be an intense weekend in Fayetteville for Tennessee, Arkansas. But back to football here, just a little bit here, Ty. Like, how does Arkansas have to treat Tennessee differently than any of their other previous teams they played this year? How do you think they're gonna treat them differently?
I think it just starts with the up-tempo offense. Oklahoma State did some of it. I mean, that's been Gundy's MO. He's done it before. They run the ball more, but I mean, again, Tennessee. I go back to a comment I made earlier. People just assume. I heard Josh Heupel get kind of offended by it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Getting asked about the passing attacks, like we run the ball too.
Yeah.
So if you can't stop them in again, been 2nd and 7s and 2nd and 8s, and it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, game's over. Because they're just going to run it down your throat. They're going to snap the ball in 10, 15 seconds, and your defense isn't going to get any rest, and they're going to be gassed the whole night. So I don't think there's, outside of maybe Ole Miss, and I think technically Tennessee gets off more snaps and more plays than they do. There's not a team in college football that can prepare you what the orange and white team is going to try and do on Friday or Saturday night in Fayetteville.
Do you think, because it's so important when Tennessee hits, they barely hit it at Oklahoma. They barely got over 150 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
When you look at Arkansas's front seven, and Tennessee should be healthier on the offensive line this week than they were 2 weeks ago. They were down to their 4th tackle against Oklahoma in that game in the second half. Do you think Tennessee will be able to get to 150 yards plus on the ground? Because I think if they are, I think it's going to be really, really hard for Arkansas to be able to stay in this football game.
Arkansas actually has a pretty good defense. Chase, I don't have the stats in front of me, but Ollie Gordon rushed for less than 50 yards. And I know Oklahoma State as a whole has been struggling trying to run the football this year, but he was heralded coming in that game as one of the best Heisman finalists in all of college football. And Arkansas stoned him for 50, 60 minutes of that game, and it ends up going to a double OT. So I think they have shown, not just this season, but the season before, they can stop the ground game. It's the passing game that worries me. Danico Slaughter, former Tennessee Volunteer, is going to be gunning for his teammates. You know, he's going to be fired up, as are the rest of that secondary, because it's one of those things they know their teammate is going up against some of his friends, and they want to play for him. So I think your question initially was, can you hold the less? They have the ability to, sure. I'm not going to bet on it, though.
If they can't, I just think Tennessee, that's how there's a combination you talked about with the defense. If Dylan Sampson, Cam Selden looks like he should be held, again, another guy, or Tennessee, it's unfortunate for Arkansas to me that they just face Nick Scorton and this A&M physical front seven. And then it's like, here you go. Get ready for the best front seven in college football right after this. Poor Taylen Green, who I'll get into in a second. But I just look at Tennessee getting this time off, I think was huge, because it was such an emotional win going to Norman and stealing that one from Oklahoma, that now you have 4 straight home games after this one for Tennessee. You have an 80% playoff CFP opportunity here. You just have to finish out here, and I think it would have been an easy look ahead spot for Tennessee if they had just beaten Oklahoma and then had to go directly to Fayetteville and get right back up after that kind of game for Heupel and just be ready to go, because there is a recipe there that would have been a problem. I just don't think Arkansas can stay in this game. You play this game 10 times, they can't stay in it 9 times. To me, the way they stay in it is what you talked about with Ollie Gordon being limited. If you hold Dylan Sampson in a way that Arkansas was able to for most of that ball game 2 weeks ago, that gives you an opportunity. The other opportunity is, like, Tennessee, people forget, because unless you were watching from beginning to end, Tennessee had 2 rough turnovers and immediately got the ball back. Like, they turn it over inside the 10. Nico get a fumble. Oklahoma proceeds to fumble it right back, and Tennessee gets out of it. Like, what kind of game is that, though, if Oklahoma takes advantage and scores? So I think, to me, the 2 ways that Arkansas makes this a game is they limit what Tennessee's able to do on the ground and force Tennessee to pass protect, where they've struggled through 4 weeks a little bit. And two, I think Tennessee will, like on the road in the Heupel era, they will turn the ball over. Like there is going to be a play or two that Tennessee, I think, will be in a little bit of trouble here. And will Arkansas be the team that makes them pay for it? Because it hasn't happened to this point this year. Do you think that's something that's possible for this Arkansas defense?
That's a lot of variables and
Yeah.
and trying to find the formula to beat Tennessee. Arkansas had an excellent game defensively against Auburn 2 weeks ago, but it's different
Yeah.
going up against Peyton Thorne and Noah Brown than what it'll be against Nico this Saturday night. Offensively, we saw a team against NC State go off, and defensively. I mean, the defensive performance might have been better than the offensive performance, but I think there is a way this happens. You kind of laid it out though. Tennessee had a bye.
Yeah.
Arkansas, I think, would trade their bye next week before LSU for a bye this week before you play Tennessee because they're banged up and hurt offensively. I don't know who's going to roll out at tight end, to be honest. You mentioned Tennessee resorting to a four-string offensive lineman moments ago.
Yeah.
Arkansas's not exactly in that camp on the offensive line, but tight end position they might be. So, in secondary position, and they're not fully healthy. It's a little scary, but thus far it hasn't been a bloodbath in any of the games, but they haven't played a team like the potency of the Tennessee Volunteers come Saturday.
And then you look at it, I mean, you kind of outline maybe it's tight end for Arkansas. The problem is, like, I don't know what that you're gonna have to chip a little bit because I don't know if you've seen, like, there's a James Pierce, a Joshua Josephs, Caleb Herring, a Omar Norman Lott, Elijah Simmons, Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy, Jason Jenkins, Dominic Bailey. I could keep going. Unfortunately, Ty, you're going to see them all on Saturday night because Tennessee's rotating 10 plus deep on the defensive line. An area of weakness I'm most curious about with you, what do you think is the area of weakness that Tennessee will most look to exploit based on how Arkansas's looked through 5 games?
Oh, it's the right side of the line of scrimmage. And there's multiple DNs and linebackers that you just alluded to that can exploit those weaknesses. And it's not just that. Arkansas's offensive line as a whole, good in run block. You were talking about earlier, can Arkansas limit Tennessee to 150 or less rushing yards? The only one they're going to have a game is if they can establish the ground game. And you get aggressive defenses off their, like, firing zone per se by hitting them and pushing them back. And that's going to be the task that lies ahead for this Razorback football team. They're angry. They're mad. They just lost to A&M again. There's been a team lying in the way in Tennessee. So it's going to be interesting. First stripe out since 2021, I believe, Chase, for Arkansas. We mentioned the previous record. This is a fun – it's not a rivalry because I don't think Tennessee fans consider Arkansas that and Arkansas fans – but it's been a fun series. I mean, we all know what happened in 98. Then we know what happened in 99. 2001 was a great game. Matt threw that pass to Richard Smith down the sidelines, went to 6 OT, 7 OT, so I remember that right. Then you had College game day. I mean, this has been a fun series, and I'm just hoping for a good game Saturday night. I really don't want to leave in the third quarter down by 28 points. That doesn't sound like a fun weekend with all my buddies in town, Chase.
Well, I don't think it's going to stop here. I think this is going to be a big year for the Tennessee-Arkansas rivalry because first SEC basketball game, Jonas Haydu and Arkansas comes to town. Like, I'm curious how that reception and how that game goes, but I think that's going to be a must-see. And then you talked about with baseball, like Tennessee going to Arkansas defending their national title. I think we could have, I mean, if this game's good on Saturday, this could be a great year for the Tennessee-Arkansas series across the 3 main sports.
No question. I had forgotten that legitimately the first SEC game that Arkansas will play in is the return for Jonas Haydu, who is going to be the starter. It's going to be the defensive backbone and one of the most pivotal players on that basketball team because I think he brings the toughness that Arkansas is going to need this upcoming basketball season. And the other aspect is Cal. Tennessee fans still hate Cal. He's not at Kentucky anymore, but Tennessee basketball fans don't exactly like Arkansas either. And Arkansas fans don't exactly like Tennessee. So this is it sets up, Chase. I hadn't thought about that, but this might be, if you look at football, basketball, baseball combined, this might be the most heightened it's ever been for Tennessee, Arkansas.
I tend to agree. Final 2 here for you real quick. Is Arkansas close to figuring it all out, do you think? Because they were so close to being 5-0, or do you think this is, after this game, you're 500, LSU's right around the corner, that it just feels like the light's about to go out for Sam Pittman and this era of Arkansas football?
I think they'll beat LSU.
Wow.
They're coming off a bye. LSU's playing Ole Miss the week before. That game's at night too. I've kind of chalked that up as a win. Maybe I shouldn't. It's an upset. Maybe I should say upset. So I still think there's some life in this team. That puts you at 4-3. You get Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State down the road. That gets you to a bowl game. But I think it's one of the elements that I've talked about before on our show, Chase, is people haven't realized outside of people haven't realized outside the state of Tennessee how good high school football in that state has gotten. And it's Nashville, Memphis, where you're at out east. I mean, there is so much more football talent in the state of Tennessee than there's ever been before. In addition to a surplus of NIL money that Josh Heupel's just sitting on right now. I mentioned Danny White earlier. He's done a fantastic job with that entire athletics department. I think he's the highest paid athletics director in the SEC, and for good reason. You got like 15,000 waiting fans for season tickets in Neyland Stadium. Yeah. So there's a lot going on for Tennessee right now. Arkansas does not have that same impact. Basketball is great with Cal right now. We'll see what happens this season. Baseball is kind of tried and true with Dave Van Horn, but football, it's just we're on different levels comparison-wise.
Yeah. But, it can all change very quickly in this era too. It's one of those, like, you embrace it every week. I've told Tennessee fans, like, this is going to be the best era probably in your lifetime, from the last couple of years to up to 2030. It's just really hard to get this kind of buy-in. You talk about Danny White, but it's the president, it's the chancellor, it's the athletic director, it's having Rick Barnes, Tony Vitello, and Heupel all together at the same time. You need some luck on your hands. Like, you need the buy-in from the top. You need the NIL aspect. Like, there's just a lot that goes into being a really dominant, elite athletics program across the board. And you can't overlook how much luck you need. Like, you just need some luck.
I mean, think about that game-winning kick 2 years ago. Yeah. Which got blocked, partially blocked, and still goes in. How many times do you see that happen, especially since Tennessee hadn't beaten those guys since 2006? Funny
and enough, they've been there. Terrence Cody blocked it at Alabama at Lane Kiffin year, and that's how the game ended. Yeah, they drive down the field, and then it's blocked, and game over.
The thing about that game is Arkansas fans feel that exact same way. Tennessee actually accomplished what Arkansas fans could not. They never beat Nick Saban at Tuscaloosa. 07, 2023, never beat Nick Saban. Tennessee at least did it once. Arkansas didn't do it at all.
Goodness gracious. Final thing here. Taylen Green. Seems like there are some issues with him making decisions under duress. The thing that I come back to most when I think about how this game's going to go, my gut is Taylen Green is going to make a lot of mistakes with this Tennessee front seven. Keenan Peely and Aaron Carter in the back, and I think they're going to have really big days here with their eyes and watching where he's going. Do you think he's up for being able to manage this game and handle the kind of pressure that Tennessee is going to throw at him? Because I don't think he's seen anything like it, even with A&M last week.
No, I don't think he has either. I mean, Elko's only had 1 year with those guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a stockpile talent. I think there's 2 projected first picks on this team. You said, is it Scolry? I'm forgetting the A&M defensive.
Oh, Nick Scorton. Yeah,
Scorton. That's it. I knew it was SK, but you got him. You got a couple others. I think you allude to something. I don't think there's many quarterbacks in college football that, with Arkansas's offensive line and pass pro, and Taylen Green literally having a second or two to make a decision, there's not many QBs in the country that could be successful behind that. So I think it's, one, he's got to call the right protections. And I know that I don't want to speak over anyone's head or speak over my head, but some of this is on him, not recognizing blitzes, not recognizing who's who. And the second guy, the guy's just got to block better. Like they've got to communicate. Josh Braun, one of their Florida's Addison Nichols, also former Tennessee Volunteer, is starting center for Arkansas. They've talked about that too, because they want to put Taylen in situations to make plays. And we've seen that he can make plays. We've seen it. You give this guy an inch, he's going to go for 25 yards. So it's like you're trying to grasp onto hope, but it's really hard, as you said, when you list off the 10 Tennessee defensive players that are just going to be cycling through Saturday Night Baseball.
You'll never see anything like it, Ty. It's going to be like hockey. Like, the hockey shifts? That's what Tennessee does on the defensive line. It's absurd that they're able to do 11, 12 deep on the defensive line. You don't really notice. Like, they're just fresh. They're playing 20 snaps. Like, James Pierce might play 25 snaps, and he might go number 1 overall next year in the NFL draft. He doesn't have to play that much.
Must be nice. That's the again, that's what Philip Fulmer, people credit him for being an offensive guy at times, but I mean that defense on the other side,
Yeah.
that's what got it in 98 too. I think we all
Yeah.
know what happened in Knoxville in 98. It was a defensive play. Much wasn't 100% force, but yeah, defense wins championships, and Tennessee's got a great one this year.
Ty, have you given your preview or your score prediction publicly yet, or are you sitting on it? Do you want to
Not
hold
publicly.
it?
I think I kind of made a reference to it earlier, Chase. I mean, I think it's a close game, fourth quarter, 10-9, whatever, and then Tennessee pulls away and ends up covering barely. It is a stripe out. This is a game of significance. Sam Pittman's going to – here's the thing. Arkansas has come out flat a good chunk of times against home teams, and you're just hoping they play like a couple of wild hogs like they did in 2022 against a ranked Ole Miss team. They've done it before in this stadium. I don't think anyone's holding their breath necessarily, but it's an away game of the SEC. I mean, I thought Tennessee was going to beat Oklahoma by 28. And that, like as you made reference to, that ended up being a better game. And who knows, a turnover that Jackson Arnold doesn't have in that game or something else, if it goes the other way, that very much is a one-score game, it looked like, potentially. But you're grasping at straws here if you think Arkansas is going to win this game being a 2-touchdown underdog. But I sure hope I'm wrong, Chase.
I don't. Actually, Ty. I need Tennessee to be 5-0 coming back to Knoxville for 4 straight games. Heupel's lost 1 home game since the start of the 2022 season. Need to get home, and then you're good to go, man. Alabama at home, Florida at home.
Woo! And that's that Alabama game with them beating Georgia, Chase.
Yeah.
I don't know how you take in games when they're at home in Neyland Stadium, but you got to find a way to get into that venue. I mean, you got to after what happened 2 years ago, and after I'm going to assume Alabama is going to be undefeated heading into that football game.
Yeah. I almost re-broke my foot 2 years ago celebrating after the McGrath kick because I had a boot on because I broke my foot the week of my wedding. Don't recommend, Ty. Don't do that. I would recommend against it. It's not the best, but I obviously jumped up out of just the moment of celebration with the boot on and fell. And I like when you made a mistake, like it feels like a freeze frame and you're in the air and you're like, that was the dumbest. Why am I up in the air right now? Like I'm going to have to land on this broken foot. This is really, really dumb. Am I just going to walk like Kevin McHale for the rest of my life? We're in danger of that with how I'm handling this, but luckily it braced my fall. But I don't know. Like I haven't decided what I'm gonna do. I think I'll be in the building for Florida next week. But we'll see. We'll see how Florida goes, and then because part of me, man, maybe this makes me soft in my mid-30s, but I really love having my my notepad and it quiet and just being able to take notes and rewind when I want to see something back. Like it's just there's something nice about it where I just feel like I see everything I need to see.
Well, Chase, that's why you're married and I'm not. I very much like to be the thick of things, and you've matured, unlike me. So that's the difference between the two of us in Arkansas and Tennessee.
I love it. Ty, what can the good folks check out from you over at ESPN Arkansas and Hit That Line this week?
Yeah, hosting the Morning Rush from 9 to 11 a.m. Weekdays here on ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com. Hit That Line Now app. And we do daily programming from 6A to 7P. If there's any Tennessee fans that want to get an Arkansas perspective, then jump in with us sometime this week.
There you go. I love it. Ty, keep up the great work. Can't say good luck this weekend, but I just hope one team has fun. Tye Richardson, always a pleasure, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Sounds good, Chase. Appreciate having me on.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.